Welcome to Martini Time. So, my Teddy and I are here. I have my frog. I asked it to dive into the unconscious, come up with a treasure. And today, I've been writing about several things. It's been a very creative day for me. And one idea that got fleshed out, and that's what I do on Facebook. An idea comes up in the comments and so forth, and it gets fleshed out for me. So I write about it and people comment it, and it keeps going and expanding as the day goes on, and it creates energy for me. So the idea that has created energy for me today, and I've had this since before, but it just seemed to get a little more body today, and that is that terrorism in the modern world, we'll say in America, is ritual and myth. The logic of cause and effect is not helping us. It does not help us understand it, because there is no cause. I mean, there is a cause for an individual act, but there's no cause for the pattern. You see, the terrorism that we call terrorism is now a pattern, and you can even map it out. Anytime you have a pattern, if it's in human behavior, you call it a ritual. Or if it's on TV, you call it a sitcom. So the plot, you see, repeats itself. Different content, same theme, right? So a ritual pattern is a social behavior that repeats itself with different content, but the cup is the same. The pattern is the same. So what's the pattern of terrorism? Now, remember that everything has two sides. So when you say terrorism, there are two sides to it. There's that which initiates the act and that which receives the act. And both are ritualized. So let's look at the ritual on the receiving side of the act, you see. So first there's shock and awe. Oh no, and then there's the rush to it, the cameras rush. You turn on the CNN. You watch it. Everything's breaking news. Everything gets blotted out. Full focus. And it's real, because now you got cameras recording it as the people are running out of the buildings. You get the eyewitness who just walked out, You get to see people with blood still on them. It's real time, you see. And then you have the drama of catching the perpetrator. Either they're dead or they're looking for them. And then you have the why did it happen again? Why is this happening? And then you have the victims. And then you have the innocent lives, the parade of victims, the martyrs, parade of innocence, the young people snuffed, their lives snuffed. And then you have the resilience. We will not be defeated. We will not give in. We will not give in. And then you have the sacred ground, the flowers being laid where the blood was spilled, and the names remembered, you see. And then you have the vows to find out who did it, or to make this stop, you see. And then in 3 weeks it happens again. So what's going on? Obviously our logic that understands machines, with a machine, if it breaks down, you find the cause and you remove it. Airplanes don't break down. Very rarely do we have any big crashes. Why? Because every single terrorist act, unexpected death is a terrorist act. Terror. So unexpected catastrophe, we rush to find the cause, and when the cause is found, we fix it, remove it, and it doesn't happen again. A new set of variations will come up, and a new unexpected accident will happen that our plan did not include, and we rush to find the cause, remove it, fix it, so it doesn't happen again. So you march security down the road by finding the cause and eliminating it. This is not working with terrorism because there's no single cause, you see. So our logic can't fix this. Our logic can't find security. Our logic can't protect the future from it happening again. So what I suggest, and what I find helpful, is that the logic of mythology, metaphor, and ritual can come to the aid. It may not stop it, but it can give us understanding. So, I've studied Joseph Campbell all my life, since 1970. I went to a class of his. And off and on, every 10 years, I'll read all of his books. And read them for the first time again. It's really great. Because, when you do that, you realize how much you have grown in understanding when you read something and see a whole new depth into it. Well, the whole life of Joseph Campbell was spent in trying to communicate the meaning of myth and metaphor and myth, metaphor, and ritual. Ritual is myth reenacted. Basically, myth goes with ritual. They go together. Myth by itself has to have ritual in order to give it flesh and blood. Now, there are two kinds of myths. There's the dead mythology and the living mythology. Now, the dead mythology, like Greek mythology, like Middle Ages mythology, any mythology or ritual, let's say any ritual that you're able to observe scientifically or objectively or rationally. Maybe it's some primitive tribe doing a ritual. There is one on Facebook today. The question was, what does this mean? And it was a ritual of it looked like a big womb, a vulva, and they had a little spinning rock or something, and they would get this little rock spinning, and then they would put this big cone on top of it, and it would become a dancing figure. So what does that mean? Well, from us, it's either silly, irrational, primitive, or confusing. But for those who are in the ritual, it has a totally different meaning. So the dead mythology is one you can look at from a rational point of view, from a logical point of view. What's the cause and the effect here? What is this behavior? What causes this behavior? And you try to come up with a conclusion. See, that's the objective view. But the subjective view is when you are in the myth, and if you're in the myth, you don't see it. It's like the fish in a fish bowl doesn't see the bowl. It's not conscious of the bowl. So a living myth is something that we are acting within, but we are not conscious of it because we're not outside of it. So it's living, you see? We are the myth and the myth is us. You see? So now terrorism is a universal ritual, just like marriage. Marriage is a ritual, and you can participate in marriage, in the ritual of marriage, no matter what your belief is, or your race, or whatever. It's a universal ritual. So terrorism now is a universal ritual in Western civilization. You don't have it in China, or some other Tibet, or I don't know, I don't want to get into that, but I mean, the point is that it is unique to Western countries, and in America, we have, of course, Islamic radical terrorism, and we also have the homegrown terrorism. It's the same terrorism, because the ritual is the same. You have the unexpected, random murder, and the perpetrator is either suicidal or gets shot by cops or runs away and gets shot by cops, you see. And you have the same stages of grief. and you have the same sacred flowers, and you have the same pattern, you see. And why does this happen, and mourning and all that, and then it happens again. All right. So, and then on the other side of them, everything comes in twos, everything on Noah's Ark, everything comes in pairs, and they go together, they dance together like Fred and Ginger Rogers. So the terrorist and the terrorized are a ritual dance. They go together, each getting a secret benefit, each getting hidden benefit. Otherwise, you wouldn't continue it. It takes two people to dance. It takes two sides to dance, you see. So the dance cannot be understood logically. It can be understood metaphorically. It can be understood through the logic of ambiguity, you see. Now let's take a look at the hidden benefit here. So on the receiving end, we live in a modern society where everybody's fragmented, everybody is isolated individuals. We've lost the feeling of America as a whole. We've lost the feeling now, not the thought. We've lost the feeling of unity. Now take a family. It's all fragmented. Their kids are all gone away. Everybody's living in little isolated units. Suburbia gone away. And somebody dies. The family comes rushing back. And suddenly, through the death of that individual, the family feels family. The family feels unity. People are hugging each other. Maybe old grievances are forgiven. Maybe people that have not seen each other are suddenly feeling unified again. So the death unifies the family through its grief, you see. So grief unifies. So now we have the family of a society. Fragmented, everybody's running around like bumper cars. No feeling of unity. Now, there's feeling of unity if you get into a political party and go to a Trump rally or a Sanders rally, feeling of unity. But this unity is not inclusive of the whole country. It's exclusive of the other half, you see. So it's not real unity. But the terrorist act, through its death of innocence, through its sacrifice, achieves the feeling of unity. So on the attacking side, on the terrorist side, the same thing is going on. Now these people that are participating in this ritual feel dismembered, fragmented, without a whole, not a part. And they have an idea of a whole, maybe an Islamic caliphate or some idea of unity. And so they find unity in identifying with this idea of unity, like in Star Wars, the rebels. Rebels always die for the idea of a greater unity. So the terrorists then are willingly, we say it's suicide, they say it's martyrdom. They sacrifice their life for the unity that gives them meaning. So, on the other side of the receiver, now I'm not saying this so we'll find pity or say, oh, the terrorists are misunderstood. I'm not saying that at all. I'm trying to understand the larger ritual that reoccurs, you see, without blaming anybody, just trying to understand it. So you see, on both sides, both acts achieve a sense, a feeling of unity. For those terrorists who are suicidal, blowing them up, the people they leave behind derive energy from that sacrifice. So death, sacrificial death, generates energy of unity. This is historic. I mean, All cultures have some form of a sacrificial death that unifies rhythmically, mythically, the society. The Aztecs were the perfect example of that. Their War of the Flowers, where they had continuous wars to get humans to sacrifice, generated tremendous energy and power, you see. We have wars, continuous wars, and we have our heroes who sacrifice their lives and become martyrs and freedom heroes, you see, and veterans. We honor them and all that. But these are basically willing sacrificers to the cause of freedom, you see, the God freedom. So the God freedom needs human sacrifice in a mythic sense, you see. So this ritual reenactment of terror, see, we call it terror from our side. I don't know what the ISIS calls it. but the point is that while it seems to be fragmenting, it's also unifying. And we rise up and say, we will not give in to the terrorists, you see. We will not give in. England, we will not succumb, you see. They can't make us change our life. So there's a unifying power in death. And the terrorists are willing sacrificial objects, and the victims of a terrorist attack are unwilling sacrificial objects to the ritual itself, which includes both, you see. So anyway, this cause and effect, this understanding and logic that we have that really understands mechanisms, really is not helping us understand the logic of rituals that act out a myth. And the myth that's being acted out is that to create a whole, to re-energize the whole, to keep it alive, sacrifice is required. Even Christianity is built on this, the sacrifice of Jesus. You see? King Kong. The virgin sacrificed to King Kong. You see? So all this idea of sacrifice, and there is the willing or the unwilling sacrifice. The willing is, I'll do it to save the people. The unwilling is, you do it. You see, okay. But the point is, whether it's a willing or unwilling, the sacrifice is required. So in a sense then, modern society does not have, no, we have rituals that heal, sacrificial rituals. They're called movies. So you go to a movie, and there's always a hero who is sacrificing himself for his other people, for the whole. That's part of every action movie. Somebody's got to sacrifice. Avatar, the pilot of the helicopter, was a sacrificial victim. See, so so all the movies require sacrifice, but these movies are mythic reenactments of this myth of sacrifice for the greater good, you see. But it's not flesh and blood. It's a movie, So it does not acquire anything of the consumer of the movie. You get a vicarious, cathartic sacrifice. You go through the sacrifice with the hero. Mel Gibson's heroes just get beat to shit, or the Passion of Christ. You go through the sacrifice of Christ and all that, but it's vicarious. You're sitting in your chair. You haven't done a thing. So what modern life is all about now is real-time mythology. We don't like TV sitcoms and planned sacrifice and program and everything. We want something authentic. We want something real. We want to see real blood. Just like the Romans did in their gladiators. Those gladiators didn't go home at night and have a beer. They killed each other. That was a sacrifice. Blood sports. It was a sacrificial sports for the glory of Rome. You see, those guys didn't go home. You see? So actually, we're not different from that. We've created our blood sports, but we don't call it that anymore. We call our sport tennis, football, movies, action, sports, risky stuff, How close can you get to death? But I don't want to die. You see? So it's all like pretend. Amusement parks. You go to an amusement park. You pay some money and you get scared to death. But you come out and say, whew, death was fun. You see? So I'll pretend, it's an amusement park. But we want real stuff, So terrorism is real sacrifice, is real blood. It's real, So we're making our mythology flesh and blood. But we're not conscious of it. You see, we're unconscious of the mythological realm, and all we see is the blood and guts, and we don't know why. Because we don't understand the larger picture. We don't have a wide-angle lens that can see living mythology anymore. All we see is dead mythology, somebody else's mythology, somebody else's rituals. Oh, how silly they are. We're so enlightened. You see? That was the scientific method. It put you outside of experience so you could observe it, make it logical, make it clear and distinct. Mythology, religion, magic, doesn't exist. Put it back, throw it out. But it has to come back, you see, because that's part of our nature. Life cannot be understood by logic, classical logic. Life is ambiguous. Life is this, life is that. Life is two. Not one hand or the other. Life is both hands put together, yet still they're separate. It's one that is two. So what I'm saying is that the ritual dance of terrorism is two, the terrorists who are bad and the good guys who are sacrificed and killed. But from a mythic view, a metaphoric view, it's one. You see? It's one, but we see it as two. And because we've lost the ability to understand metaphor and see metaphorically or ambiguatively, we can't see the one. Because the one is transcendent of the two. And we've lost the eye of transcendence. We can't see the transcendent whole that includes all of the forms of us things, you see. And this is the crash, this is the tragedy of materialism, which just sees things and cannot see that which holds the things together. All we see is things, and the logic of things does not understand or even see the transcendent whole or the pattern that holds it together. Just like in quantum physics, you got an electron, that's a particle, that's a thing. But if you change the experiment, it's a wave, it's a field. It's no thing, it's a field, you see? So a myth is like a field that holds all the objects. It's like a magnet that you put under a piece of paper, then all of the iron filings go into a pattern. So the mythic understanding, the myth that holds the two, the terrorist and the terrified, holds them together, is like the magnet, and what we see, because we're just the iron filings running around in the pattern, and all we see is other iron filings. Say, why is that iron filing doing that to me? What's making this happen? You see, we can't see it. And that creates terror. When you can't see what's causing something, it becomes immediately subjective, and now the terrorists are out there in your backyard, and you're going to lock the door and build a wall. Because when we can't understand the objective, it becomes subjective, and now in my little piece of Blackstone, I'm feeling terrified in my living room. You see? But when you understand something, you're not terrified. And so there's, and this is the irony of it. Groups of people get killed all day. A bus goes off the cliff, 20 people are killed. Gets back page of some paper. The people who were on the bus, their families are grieving, but it's just a blip on our screen. But let somebody from another country, somebody with a different skin, or an American terrorist come in with a machine gun and kill 20 people. That's breaking news, and we spend 2 weeks covering it. Why? Because we can't understand it. You understand why some bus ran off a road. Oh, had a flat tire. You see, that's it. I understand that, but I don't understand that terrorist act because it doesn't fit our logic. It doesn't fit our worldview, and that creates the terror. That's the real terror. So anyway, thank you for dropping in. This has been good. I'll see you in the morning.